Administration moves to clamp down on political activity by tax-exempt nonprofit groups. The administration is proposing new regulations that would inhibit certain tax-exempt organizations that have in the past been able to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on elections without revealing their big donors. Some say the goal is to impact the 2014 congressional elections. So is it? Joining us now for a fair and balanced debate are David Mercer, the former Deputy National Finance Director for the DNC, and Ron Bonjean, the former Chief of Staff to the Senate Republican Conference. Gentlemen, thanks for coming in on a Saturday.
Great to see you. Great to see you.
Will it impact the 2014 elections? Is it designed to do that? David, to start with you.
I think given the clarity that they're seeking on the actual activities of the 501c4s and 527s, those groups, that you're not going to see anything really come into impact until 2016. And that for 2014, they'll be trying to get that clarity, but I don't think it will much impact the 2014 elections as it stands.
Ron?
Yeah, it's highly unlikely it's going to impact the 2014 elections in terms of the rulemaking. In terms of the politics itself, you know, it very well could do so, because it's a nasty game the IRS is playing. You know, first they went after conservative groups, they were caught going after them, and now they're just simply trying to change the rules of the game. And I think politically it looks like restrictions of freedom of speech here, and that could hurt Democrats in the 2014 election.
This is a proposed rule at this point. It was just printed in the Federal Register, and without going into the weeds about federal rulemaking, it takes at least a year, does it not, for these things to progress?
It does. And just to add a little clarity to Ron's point, this has already been put into law, the kinds of activities that are permitted by 501c4s, whether they can actually mention a candidate rather than just advocate for a particular issue. And given what happened last year with the IRS, they're seeking to clarify that, so it is clear to everybody what those rules are. And I might add to Ron's point that progressives and liberal groups were also among those that were reviewed by the IRS as to what their activities are and whether they are entitled to tax-exempt status. And that's the key, is you can't be politically active and then seek also a tax-exempt status. And that's what the rules are designed to ensure, and we're going to get greater clarity as a result of that.
Nevertheless, a lot of conservative groups are up in arms over this proposed
they're always up in arms.
Rule. and let's listen to Chairman Darrell Issa of the House Oversight Committee reflecting his point of view here.
Organizing for Action, his own many hundreds of millions of dollar 501c4, continues to be active in politics without disclosing any of their contributions, while attacking conservative groups in every possible way. Now that they can't win any longer, they can't forestall it any longer, they're looking to change the rules.
Ron, Republican spin, or is there legitimacy?
No, there's absolute legitimacy here. They got caught red-handed going after conservative groups. The majority of these groups are conservative, are Republican, and now they're trying to change the rules to get quote-unquote greater clarity. Actually means to us that they're looking to restrict the activities of these groups because they weren't effective in doing so in the 2012 elections.
You can't argue that greater clarity is needed. There's just tremendous obfuscation, opaqueness about these rules. They're supposed to be 501c4s, social welfare organizations, which means that less than 50% of their activity can be devoted to politicking.
And we're finding, and what the IRS was seeking to ensure, both among voter registration groups, progressive groups, as well as some of the conservative groups, is that they, seeking their tax exemption, were not politicking or were not playing politics, especially 30 days or 60 days out from an election. And we're going to get greater clarity. And again, it's all groups that are applying for 501c4 status or 527 status. It's just not right or left groups among the group.
Well, after it's all said and done with, I think the pushback now that the rule is being proposed is going to be tremendous. I mean, they're looking to get feedback. They're going to get it from a lot of different groups, trying to make sure that the fine print is as clear as possible so that their speech isn't restricted.
Looking down the road here, I would imagine that some of these conservative groups are going to challenge this thing in court. It seems to be likely, but then you throw into that mix the nuclear trigger that Harry Reid just pulled, which means that the D.C. Court of Appeals, which is going to hear all regulatory challenges, would have to hear this case, and they are packed now will be shortly with the Obama nominees.
It's a very busy, they're going to be very, very busy because the administration and Senate Democrats are changing the rules of the game midstream to try to alter the landscape for 2016. That's the way it looks to us. You know, if you look at, you go 30,000 feet and look at what they're doing, you mentioned the nuclear trigger, restricting the filibuster rule for Senate Republicans who are in the minority. It really looks like it's political game playing by the administration.
I'm not going to let you guys...
In contrast to that, the obstruction, the denial of appointing your executive or members of your executive, that is a do-nothing Congress that Democrats are not going to allow to happen. And where they can get movement, they're going to seek the movement. And the filibuster, the way it was abused and being misused, was something that had to be curtailed, and that's what Senator Reid, the majority leader, sought to do.
I'm not going to let you guys get out of here without a brief comment on the relaunch of Obamacare. Have you heard anything about how it's going thus far, either one of you?
I have not heard anything but bad news so far. I mean, so, you know, there's mistakes. Well, no, actually, coming from the news media, looking at, you know, people are still having problems getting on the website, and people who are getting kicked off their health plans and not knowing what to do about it. I think it's still bad news, and I think it's unlikely they're going to follow through on this deadline.
I believe that they are following through on the deadline, and you will see them operational. There may be a few glitches along the way, but they will be addressed and fixed. And I think in states like Kentucky and others, where they're getting high enrollments and governors that are seeking to establish the exchanges, unlike a lot of Republican governors that will be up for re-election, who I think will suffer as a result, we will see Obamacare
you
in
get the
action.
last word, Ron.
Senate Democrats, vulnerable Democrats are running away from this in droves. They're sending in bills to delay Obamacare. They're really worried about it. The key here is to watch the blood pressure of Senate Democrats, or Democrats in general, up for election. If the blood pressure goes down, that means that Obamacare is working. If it keeps going up, they're in big trouble.
The important
Ron
thing
Bonjean,
is smiles on the faces of the voters and those getting insurance.
Thank you both very much. We could continue all day, I know. A new video now of the American veteran being held in North